What's going on, Marlins fans? What's going on, fellow South Florida sports fans, Miami sports fans, whatnot? This is Justin Perez for the Sunshine Sports Podcast, and today I'm going to be going over every single one of the four deals that the Miami Marlins pulled off during the recent MLB trade deadline of 2026, which took place yesterday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Obviously, different time zones. I know Colin's down in Texas, so he's using the central time zone. So obviously it's an hour before mine. So obviously, wherever you live, doesn't matter. Welcome you in. And yeah, we have a lot to get to. So obviously coming into the deadline, the Miami Marlins were certainly one of the teams to keep an eye on. Obviously the Marlins ended up having a fantastic July, or excuse me, a fantastic June, not a very great July. A great June, getting national media attention, which is very rare here for our teams down in Miami. Whether it's the Marlins, Dolphins, Heat, Panthers, doesn't matter. We all know the media hates us, but it doesn't doesn't matter so much. But yeah, so everybody was wondering what the Marlins were going to do during this trade deadline, and obviously, like I just mentioned, a great June, one of the best months, if not the best month in franchise history. We were doing everything. We were winning games in every way possible. And then July hit, and we had the worst losing streak of all time in sports history. I don't care what anybody says. The 12-game losing streak is one of the worst losing streaks of all time in sports history, and certainly the worst losing streak that I've ever been a part of, that I've ever experienced, and that's even including the dismal Florida Panther years in the late 2000s when I started being a fan of them. So definitely felt like a zombie, but glad to say it's over. But obviously the 12-game losing streak definitely hindered the way we were going to approach the deadline. Obviously, Bruce Sherman, sometime last month on Fish on First, said that Peter Bendix has the green light to improve the roster, and obviously we did not buy the way that we were supposed to because of the 12-game losing streak, but it is what it is. But we still made several solid deals, in my opinion. We ended up bringing in a haul of 8 prospects, and several of those prospects are nearing MLB readiness as they're at the AAA level, and we also ended up acquiring a bullpen arm that could help us towards our race to the postseason. So let's get into it. Starting off, the Miami Marlins, the first trade that they made was sending Liam Hicks to the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for 3 prospects. Liam Hicks, obviously a catcher, first baseman, detonator hitter for the Marlins, and definitely was a surprise, as well as a lot of other players on this roster, whether they're with us or not with us anymore. Liam Hicks, definitely one of the biggest surprises of this Major League Baseball season. There's nothing to say other than he's been astounding. He's been the Marlins' main RBI man, the leading RBI man, and he's had 14 home runs this season so far. Definitely a big power bat early on, but his power has decreased as we entered July, and he obviously hasn't been having the same impact as earlier in the season. He did have the great month, and I'm assuming, as well with a lot of other Miami Marlins fans when we say this, but I think that we just saw the peak of Liam Hicks' career. Remember, Liam Hicks was a former Rule 5 draft pick of the Marlins a few years ago, and Rule 5 draft picks don't really make it into the major leagues and really don't have as much of an impact as Liam Hicks has had on our franchise. I honestly thank him from the bottom of my heart for what he did, and it was certainly fun to watch him in a Marlins uniform, especially this season. He did everything that he was asked, everything that he was told. He's a very, very classy individual. He respects the game, doesn't cheat the game, and he plays the game the right way. So I look forward to watching Liam Hicks in Tampa Bay. Hopefully the Rays can make the World Series, and I'm actually pulling for the Rays to make the World Series, because I'm a huge New York Yankee hater. For those of you who don't know me well, I cannot stand the Yankees. So it would be kind of nice to see a small market franchise in Tampa Bay whoop the Yankees right in the face, but we'll see how that goes. The Tampa Bay being really aggressive at the deadline, and of course us giving Liam Hicks definitely helps them out. So it kind of sucks to see Liam Hicks go, but at the same time, I don't mind shipping him, to the American League, helping out a really, really fun ball club in Tampa Bay. But obviously Liam Hicks goes to the Rays. So what did we get in return? Well, we ended up getting 3 prospects from Tampa Bay. We ended up getting a second baseman and third baseman hybrid in Braden Taylor, who was the number 16 overall prospect. And we ended up also getting right-handed pitcher Jacob Keasting, who's ripping it up in high A ball. Obviously, he's the number 26 ranked prospect in Tampa's farm system. And then we also got shortstop Adrian Santana, who's a number 27 prospect, who's also in high A ball. So I like this trade. Obviously, like I said, sending Liam Hicks is not fun. And obviously, with the Marlins franchise, the words fish and trades do not usually end up going well. And I know us as Marlins fans, we have a lot of PTSD, and from prior trades, Marlins fans of all ages can definitely relate to the fact that the trade market has been our biggest undoing throughout our franchise's history. And I've seen a lot of people, I guess, overreact to this trade, and they're already calling this trade a miserable one, and that Peter Bendick should be fired and all that nonsense, which in my opinion is ridiculous, because this trade, yes, did we give up a notable name off our roster, which we're known for doing? Yes, but this was the right move to make. There is no world in which this trade doesn't make sense. First of all, Liam Hicks plays two positions that are already taken up on this roster. Joe Mack has been a revelation behind the plate. I think all of us can agree that he has been a revelation behind the plate for the Marlins. He's been a great two-way player, great two-way catcher as a rookie, getting it done both offensively and defensively, one of the best defensive catchers in all of baseball already. You can make an argument that he should be the National League Rookie of the Year. So we already have that position taken up. And not to mention, we do have some depth in the form of backup catchers, Brian Navarreto and Augustin Ramirez, who hopefully will come up soon. He's been improving a little bit in AAA. Obviously, he had a miserable start to this season, so hopefully he can come back up and maybe be a solid backup for us, backup catcher as well as a backup first baseman. But you already have the catcher position figured out with Joe Mack. He is the future, and there's already talks of him getting an extension, which he deserves an extension, even if he's just a rookie. So he's great. So we already have the catcher position filled up. And we also have the first base position taken up every day now by Kyle Stowers, who's moved in from the outfield and has actually seen a lot of production from the initial corner. So this trade does make sense, and you're not going to really have Liam Hicks be the everyday DH when his natural position is the catcher position. So I think it was necessary for him to go, and like I said, it's always good to sell players when they're at their peak value, and certainly getting 3 prospects from an organization that develops talent well is certainly nothing to sneeze at. So now let's get into the prospects that we got. So first off, Braden Taylor, like I mentioned, he's number 16 prospect in Tampa's farm system. And Tampa's farm system is very rich in talent. So it's not like we ended up getting a bunch of scrubs who will never make the major leagues. These guys, all these 3 players have a legitimate chance to make the major leagues. So first off, Braden Taylor, number 16 prospect, currently in Double-A. This past season, or this season that he just finished wrapping up right now, he batted .284, a slash lines of .284, .384, and .513 with an .897 OPS. He ended up batting 17 home runs, 56 RBIs, and ended up stealing 20 bases in 88 games. Has a good combination of left-handed power, solid defensively, and has speed along the base paths. Of course, the 20 stolen bases are evidence of that. So he's a good, solid, all-around player as of right now. We needed a third baseman desperately because this organization, the Marlins franchise, has seen a lot of trouble at third base this season. We've had a rotation of Javier Sanoja, Graham Pauley, and Connor Norby, who I will be talking about in a bit. Connor Norby, it was a part of the trade that ended up bringing in our immediate help, and we'll get to that trade later on. But yeah, so we've had a revolving rotation at third base with Sanoja, Norby, and Pauley. So to bring in somebody who is a good third baseman, was a solid third baseman, who could be our third baseman of the future, I think that's awesome for the Marlins. And we again just adding in more good talent. Braden Taylor, a former first-round pick from TCU back in 2023 of the Rays. So he's still relatively young. He still has a long way to go in his development. Like I said, he's still in Double-A ball. So we don't know when he could be moved up to AAA. Hopefully by the start of next season he'll be in AAA because, obviously off the numbers that I read, he's very, very productive, and there's no reason in keeping him in Double-A for another year if he's going to put up a staggering 897 OPS. Again, that is amazing. So obviously has a bright future ahead of him. Like I said, power, great defense, great speed, and a much-needed lefty bat. We don't have many lefty bats in our lineup right now, and obviously being well-rounded in the batting order is a necessity. So it's also nice that we ended up adding him and the fact that he's a left-handed bat. So that's Braden Taylor. We also got, like I said, Jacob Keasting, who's a right-handed pitcher who's currently in high A ball. This past season ended up going 6-0, 16 starts, 18 total appearances, and they ended up posting numbers of 167 ERA, 0.87 WHIP, staggering 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, and only 1.9 walks per 9 innings. So that just sort of goes to tell you what you need to know about Jacob Keasting. He's a 6'5" pitcher, one of the fastest risers, if not the fastest riser in Tampa Bay's farm system. He was originally a 14th round draft choice just 2 years ago, back in 2024. He has a solid array of pitches. His number one pitch is his 4-seam fastball, which usually is around like the low 90s in terms of mile per hour, but he does mix up a changeup and a splitter. Those are his top 3 pitches: fastball, changeup, and a splitter. So Jacob Keasting, very solid, strong arm. It's kind of hard to tell where he'd be in a few years from now. He's in high A ball, like I mentioned, so we don't know when he'll get elevated up and if he'll get elevated for next season at all, or if the Marlins will be interested in keeping him in high A ball. We know that the Marlins value development like no other franchise in Major League Baseball. That's been the case ever since Peter Bendix has been the general manager. We have just been stockpiling on our farm system, and the pitching, I think, definitely needs some more depth in the farm system, and Jacob Keasting certainly gives that. High strikeout volume guy, a guy that's going to strike out a lot of guys, like I said. Doesn't really walk a lot of batters. He's very keen on keeping his pitches in the strike zone, has good control. I've watched a little bit of film on him since last night, has some good control. Definitely needs to work on a lot more his command. He has, like I said, good control, good command for a minor leaguer in high A ball, but obviously still needs a long way to go. So we'll see where he ends up developing. I'm excited for him. He's definitely, a pitching prospect to keep an eye on. And, we'll see where he ends up developing and where he'll stand in about 2 years from now. But, yeah, an interesting pitcher there. And then finally we got Adrian Santana, who's a shortstop, number 27 overall prospect in Tampa's farm system, also in high A ball, just like Jacob Keasting. Adrian Santana, a Florida native, went to the Doral Academy, so obviously he's going to stick around, be around Florida, which I think is nice. I think it's always nice to keep local talent home, give them a chance to play big league baseball. I've always been a big proponent of keeping local guys in the area, keeping them at home, giving them a chance to flourish and make the major leagues while also being hometown kids. I've always been a big fan of keeping hometown kids. So Adrian Santana, number 27 prospect, he batted with slash lines, a 311 batting average to go along with a 373 on base percentage, and a 395 slugging percentage to go along with 3 home runs, 24 RBIs, 23 stolen bases, and a staggering 42 scored runs in 54 games played this past season. He's the number 31 overall pick back in 2023, a competitive balance A selection. Obviously, with the numbers I just listed out, not a power bat at all. He's a average hitter, contact hitter. He's very, very athletic, very speedy. He is very fast along the base paths, similar to Javier Sanoja, in my opinion, just a speedster. Runs along the base paths rather quickly, rather easily, which enables him to steal a whole bunch of bags, which obviously that's something that we're doing now with our team currently this season. We're known for being aggressive along the base paths, probably a little bit over-aggressive, but regardless, he definitely fits our style of play, definitely fits what we want out of our ball players, with Peter Bendix, which is the ability to get contact with the bat, run around the base pass with some speed, steal bases, and play solid defense. Now, his defense does have a lot to be desired as of right now from what I've read, but he has a solid 60-grade run, arm, and fielding tools, so definitely has potential to be one of the best shortstops in baseball if he's developed properly. And obviously, I know people are going to say, we don't need a shortstop. Why are we trading for him? We have Otto Lopez. Well, Otto Lopez is in his late 20s, and while he's the answer for the Marlins now, I will not be shocked if we end up trading him one of these years down the line to bring up some of these prospects. Again, Peter Bendix values prospects. He values minor league talent. He values young players that he could develop through the system. And we obviously know that Otto Lopez was not highly regarded, as a baseball player before this season. We all know that he had talent, but I don't think anybody would have expected him to be putting up the numbers that he's putting up this season, being first in the National League in hits and a whole bunch of other categories. So, but while Otto Lopez is the option at shortstop now, it's always good to get guys in your farm system that are gonna, give you more depth and that are obviously younger and that could develop into something more and keep our, potential window of contention going. Obviously, Peter Bendick's coming in from Tampa Bay, and Tampa's one of the, I guess, model small market franchises where they're always putting together competitive teams cheaply through drafting and developing. And no matter if they lose big name players to free agency to some of the bigger market franchises, Tampa's always being competitive because they always are able to bring up guys from their farm system who develop well. So, Tampa's had a rich history of developing guys, letting them go when they can't afford them, and bringing up other guys that can succeed and that are ultimately contributors in the major leagues. So that's the blueprint that Peter Bendix is trying to copy here in Miami. So definitely you could see where he's going with this move. So, you get Santana, the shortstop, you get the right-handed pitcher in Jacob Keasting, and of course you get the third baseman / second baseman hybrid in Braden Taylor, which we sorely needed. So fill up a need in the farm system, adding some more depth in the pitching and shortstop. I like this trade. Like I said, it sucks to see Liam Hicks go, but at the end of the day, we all knew that this was going to happen, with the catcher and first base positions locked up with Joe Mack and Kyle Stowers, respectively. So, happy to see Hicks going to Tampa Bay to an actual contender in the American League where they have a chance to make the World Series. I cannot wait to see what he does in Tampa Bay. So thank you, Liam Hicks, for everything you've done for the Miami Marlins franchise. And I wish you good luck for the remainder of your career and go win a World Series in Tampa Bay. Next up, the second trade that we made was sending another, I guess you could say long-term stalemate on the roster. Braxton Garrett going to the Chicago Cubs in a trade, which sends us two prospects. And you can make an argument that this was the best deal that Bendix made during the trade deadline. So Braxton Garrett, obviously Braxton Garrett, huge part of this organization. Without him, we would not have made the playoffs back in 2023. So was a huge part in getting us to the postseason in 2023. And also, helping us win a series in Chicago as well. So it's kind of ironic that we're sending him to the team that we beat once, or actually twice, into postseason series. But yeah, so Braxton Garrett going to the Cubbies. And we end up getting Jonathan Long, who's the number 10 prospect in Chicago's farm system, and right-handed pitcher Jace Beck, who's the number 28 prospect. So, but before I get into those guys, Braxton Garrett, the reason why we traded him was, he did have a solid start to his career, and like I said, was a huge part of the 2023 postseason team. But, he ended up sustaining, obviously, the injuries and was never able to find his way back and was never able to carve out a role in the rotation here in Miami after 2023. He was struggling mightily, was stuck in the minors, stuck in AAA for a couple years. And, of course, we ended up giving him a couple chances this season in the major leagues. He ended up pitching 2 games for us, but they did not go well, did not go as planned. He ended up getting lit up, and now he's with the Cubs. So I think Braxton Garrett needed to change the scenery. He needed to be part of a new organization. I'm sure that he's very thankful for the Miami Marlins for giving him the opportunity to make it to the major leagues, and he was able to establish himself as a major league pitcher here in Miami. And I know that as a fan, I'm very thankful for what he's done for this organization. But we had the cut bait, we had to move on, and I wish him well when he's going to Chicago for the Cubs. Obviously, the Cubs are one of the teams that we're trying to chase for a National League wild card spot. But still, I wish Braxton Garrett luck and all the best moving forward. So let's talk about these guys that we got. So Jonathan Long, like I said, is the number 10 prospect in Chicago's farm system. And he ended up, becoming one of the best minor league players that you could find. He's a first baseman and an outfielder, a former 9th round pick in 2023 from Long Beach State, which is a a college baseball powerhouse, by the way. Shout out Long Beach State. They're one of the best programs in all of Division I college baseball. And they're certainly a powerhouse for sure. At least they used to be. I don't know if they're still anymore, but they're still a notable program. And they brought out a lot of quality major league talent. And hopefully, Jonathan Long is one of the many former Long Beach State 49ers that actually ends up becoming something in the big leagues. He lacks star power. I mean, of course, a ninth round draft pick is gonna lack star power, but he certainly makes up for it with above average power and a decent hit tool. He spent the last 2 years at the AAA level for the Iowa Cubs, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too much of a minor league baseball guru, so I don't know many of the teams, but needless to say, he spent the last 2 seasons in AAA, and he definitely can serve as a viable first base option pretty much starting tomorrow if they want. He's certainly ready to at least be a serviceable first baseman in the major leagues, at least in my opinion. When you spend 2 years in AAA putting up solid numbers, I think that you definitely deserve a look. But if Kyle Stowers will be the first baseman and if he will be remaining at first base for the rest of the season, then Jonathan Long is definitely a player that could be looked at as a potential first base option in 2027 if there is a 2027, because, of course, we don't know if there's going to be a strike. Hopefully not, because, of course, we love baseball. I love baseball, and we don't want to miss an entire season like fans in the past did back in 1994, which is ridiculous. So hopefully there's no strike. But if there is a season next year, Jonathan Long is certainly somebody that can be looked at as a viable first base option. He played in 99 games last year, batted .283, .364 on base percentage, and a .455 slugging percentage to go along with an .818 OPS, 12 home runs, 62 RBIs, and 67 runs. Now, these are still great, solid numbers, but it must be noted that these are down numbers. He actually had a down year. The numbers that I read off for this season actually was a down year for Jonathan Long because he ended up putting bigger numbers last year. He had an OPS over 900 in 2025, and I think he had 20 home runs, so he's definitely seen a dip in his production this season in nearly 100 games played. But make no mistake about it, he's still a solid prospect and still definitely deserves a chance to make the major league soon. Last year, he also saw an increase in his walk rate. He ended up going up to 10.6, a decrease in his walk rate. I believe his walk rate was 12% last year, and now it's at a 10.6% after this season. And his strikeout rate ended up going to above 20%, 21.2% strikeout rate to be exact. So ended up seeing a decrease in numbers this season, but he's still a solid bat and certainly somebody that we could look to as a potential roster player for maybe the rest of the season or even next season or in 2028. Let's see what happens, but definitely an interesting player for sure. And the other guy we got was right-handed pitcher J Speck. J Speck is interesting because he's been in the minor leagues for pretty much his whole career. I don't think he's ever made a major league appearance. I did not see that on his stat sheet, but he's the number 28 prospect in the Cubs farm system, and he signed with the Cubbies last winter. He's a towering 6'9" right-handed pitcher. Was originally a 22nd round draft pick of the Mets back in 2019, so he has seen a long and arduous journey through the minor leagues, but the last 2 seasons Beck has spent at AAA, and this is the closest chance that he has to making a Major League Baseball roster. His primary pitch is a 4-seam fastball, which averages around 94 to 96 miles per hour. The max velocity or the max speed on that 4-seam fastball is a 99 mile per hour. So definitely a power pitcher, but it's interesting and notable to note that he lacks a second quality pitch. So that's something that he needs to work on. Starting next season in the minor leagues, something he needs to find a second quality pitch that he could develop great command for. But he does mix in a splitter, a slider, and a cutter. So his secondary pitch has to be one of those, and I'm sure he'll definitely find it soon. He's been in the minor leagues for a while, and I think any good major league pitcher should have at least 2 quality pitches that they could use on a consistent basis. So This past season, he ended up recording 9 starts and 25 appearances. So 25 games for J Spec, 9 starts. Ended up posting a record of 6-3 with a 3.62 ERA, a 1.42 WHIP, a staggering, astonishing 13.98 strikeouts per 9 innings, and 4.22 walks per 9 innings. So definitely gets a lot of strikeouts. Still struggling with his command, of course. You want that walk that walk rate, that walk per 9 inning number to go down. But certainly has a lot of potential. He's a power pitcher, obviously. If you couldn't already tell with what I was saying about his fastball, big, intimidating presence. It can definitely develop into a solid major league arm, and he's already close to being MLB ready as a 1 inning reliever. Like I said, the last 2 years at AAA, so he could be a high leverage bullpen guy. Maybe he could go into a role similar to what Dax Fulton is now here in Miami as a 1 inning reliever, like a 6 inning guy, a 7th inning guy. So maybe he could develop into that for sure. J-Spec, definitely interesting prospect for sure. So we ended up getting Jonathan Long, a top 10 prospect, and J-Spec from Chicago in exchange for an injury-riddled but promising and still young pitcher in Braxton Garrett. So I wish Braxton all the luck in Chicago, and I thank the Cubs for giving us these 2 prospects because they're definitely exciting. Definitely really, really, really exciting. Now, the third trade that was made, so those first 2 trades by the Marlins were done earlier in the day, and then they ended up proceeding with 2 trades at the buzzer. The first was a deal with the Colorado Rockies where we ended up acquiring right-handed reliever Victor Vodnik in exchange for Connor Norby and pitching prospect Aiden May. This is another trade that I'm okay with. We did end up needing some immediate help, not prospects, but immediate help, especially in the pitching. And Victor Vodnik for sure could definitely be somebody that we need. Obviously, pitching in Colorado is an impossible task. I warn you, do not look up. I mean, I'm going to have to tell you his numbers anyway from this season. But if you look at his career numbers, they're ugly. So don't look at them. And don't put too much stock into them because, again, like I said, pitching in Colorado is one of the most impossible tasks in human history. There is no way that any person, I don't care if you're Randy Johnson, there is nobody who could pitch well in Colorado. There is nobody who could pitch with great numbers that you'd expect from any pitcher in Colorado. There's just no way. Colorado is the death knell for pitchers. But as far as what we gave up, Aiden May was a former second-round draft pick out of Oregon State University, a pitching prospect, and never made it to the big leagues. So he has a chance to make it to the big leagues for Colorado. Good luck in Colorado, Aiden May. Again, pitching, pitchers in Colorado, that's like the death knell for any pitcher in baseball. That's like the one place that you do not want to go. But I wish him well in, with the Rockies organization. Hopefully he ends up developing into something special for them. And Connor Norby, definitely one of the worst Marlins this year. I know that his defense is pretty good, but that doesn't mean anything when your offense is non-existent. And Connor Norby, for what it's worth, was just ineffective, not productive, very forgettable here. Very, very forgettable season for him here. But thank you for trying your best, I guess, Connor Norby. He was part of the like I mentioned earlier, Connor Norby was part of the 3-headed circus that we had at third base. With him, Sonoha, and also Graham Pauley. But so we ended up getting Victor Vodnik, who is a MLB veteran. He's pitched parts of 4 seasons with Colorado. His top pitch is a 4-seam fastball, which averages at 98.6 miles per hour. So he has some heat. He is a heater, and he does have some good stuff. He also mixes in a slider and a changeup, for those of you who don't know. As far as what you can expect from Victor Vodnik, he's not a high-volume strikeout guy at all. He gets a lot of his outs by ground balls. He is a heavy ground ball pitcher. A lot of, his outs come from ground balls. And he has a 55.2% career percentage in ground balls And this season, he has a ground ball rate of 56%. So a lot of his outs are going to come by choppers and rollers. So, he does give up some contact. He does give up a lot of walks. So he's kind of a wild card, if you will. For his career, he has a 4.53 walks per 9 innings ratio or rate. And then this season alone, he's averaging nearly 5 walks per 9 innings this season. He's at a 4.75 walk per 9 inning clip this season in 2026. So, like I said, doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings this season. And over the course of his career, 8.09 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he's not a guy that's going to get a lot of strikeouts, and he is risky, but he does have some good stuff. And I feel like, with our pitching staff, our coaching staff, our pitching staff, as far as the coaching, I believe that we can fix him up, and we could develop him and fully make him a top-notch relief pitcher in the major leagues. So he definitely does have some good stuff. Like I said, in this season, he's appeared in 33 games, all in relief. He's pitched a total of 36 innings and has gone 3-3 with a 5.25 ERA, a 1.69 WHIP, and a batting average against of 2.94. So obviously he struggled a lot. Not surprising, like I said, since he's coming from the Colorado Rockies, but definitely has a chance to be one of the top-notch right-handed relievers in the National League here in Miami. Of course, it will benefit him that he's playing in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, which is Lone Depot Park. And like I said, with his skill set and with his pitching arsenal, with his, extremely high heater fastball, and, with his slider and his changeup and the fact that he gets a lot of ground balls, I do think that he could experience a career renaissance here in Miami. And he's still young. Like I said, he's only 4 years into his career. So he still has a long way to go. So the sky is definitely the limit when it comes to him. I'm excited to see Victor Vodnik here in Miami, and I hope that he could develop into one of the best relievers in the game. And I'm certainly hopeful of it because we do have one of the best pitching, coaching staffs in all of baseball. So excited for Victor Vodnik to come in here to help us make the postseason potentially. Welcome to Miami, Victor. You're gladly welcome. Hopefully you end up, let that 99-mile-per-hour fastball rip, let her rip, and let's get this thing going. I'm very excited for his arrival here, and hopefully he could be one of the better bullpen arms, and hopefully strengthen what is a mixed bag in terms of our bullpen. We could certainly use the help, and he definitely could help us right now. So welcome to Miami, Victor Vodnik. Excited for him. And then lastly, the last deal that we made was sending Lake Bachar to the Pittsburgh Pirates in exchange for 3 prospects. Now, I am stunned. I am ridiculously stunned that Peter Bendix was able to get 3 prospects in exchange for Lake Bachar. Now, Lake Bachar for sure was one of our better bullpen arms, but he was kind of fizzling as of late. Kind of got rocked a little bit over the last month and has certainly seen his fair share of struggles in July, just like the rest of the Marlins, but obviously has a fair share of struggles. And I guess the Marlins wanted to part ways with him. I do not mind parting ways with Lake Bachar, especially when we're getting 3 prospects. Now, this trade is interesting from the standpoint of the prospects that we ended up receiving. So we ended up getting right-handed reliever Brandon Bidwa, who's Australian, by the way. He's the number 27 prospect in Pittsburgh's farm system. So we got him. We got third baseman Hyung Seung Lee, the number 48 prospect. He's Korean. And we also ended up getting outfielder Brian Sanchez, who's a Venezuelan, who's not even ranked. He's currently playing high A ball. But let's go through these guys, shall we? So Brandon Bidwa, that's his name, Bidwa, Australian. Bidwa, I'm going to say it again. Brandon Bidwa, that's his name. That's how you pronounce it. So Bidwa, he debuted with the Pirates this season after, being stuck in high A ball. And it did not go well. I kind of feel like the Pirates rushed his debut, rushed his entry into the major leagues. He ended up posting a 6.32 ERA in just a minuscule 15 innings. So not a lot of encouragement to go off of that small sample size. But like I said, he was in high A ball, and I kind of felt like the Pirates rushed him a little bit. When you rush a prospect, certainly a pitching prospect, you're going to see results like we ended up seeing with Brandon Bidwa this season. Obviously, still has a long way to go, so there's no reason to panic. He's not a bust yet. He did end up posting a 15% walk rate and a 25% walk rate in those 15 innings, and he ended up also giving up 5 home runs in that small sample size. So, not a lot of encouragement there. And he has also struggled in AAA this season, as he has posted an 8.10 ERA in 20 innings. So, definitely has had a bad year. Pittsburgh, you can make an argument that the Pirates are one of the worst teams in all of baseball, just in how they operate and how they do things. And even though they're in a postseason push right now, there is no way you could tell me that the Pirates are a model organization. And they've definitely had a lot of misses in terms of their prospects over the years, and this is certainly looking like one of them. I mean, there was no reason to put him in the major leagues at all, and the fact that they ended up rushing him and giving him 15 innings of major league work and pretty much shattering his confidence almost. I would assume that his confidence was shattered by that. You get called up, excited, you don't pitch well because you're not ready, and then you get back and you get sent down. And obviously he struggled in AAA, so I'm assuming his confidence is low. But hopefully it changes scenery, and hopefully an entry into an organization that actually values development. Hopefully he'll be restored. He does have a power slider and the 96 mile per hour fastball, so he does have some good stuff, and he could definitely develop into an on-roster reliever. He certainly has a long way to go, of course, not even close to being ready, but he's definitely an interesting pitching prospect to add. And like I said, I'm a big fan of pitching prospects. I've never been against adding more pitching into your farm system. I've always believed that pitching is the most important aspect to your farm system. So we'll definitely see how Brandon Bidwell fares here with our AAA ball club and our minor league system here in Miami, and hopefully we can develop him into a solid relief pitcher. He definitely has a long way to go, but he has some good tools, like I mentioned, with the fastball and the slider. Could definitely be a great power reliever in the major leagues, but he definitely needs a lot of seasoning. And we also added, like I said, third baseman Hyung-Seung Lee from Korea. Like I said earlier, with the Tampa Bay Rays trade with Liam Hicks, getting the third baseman, and Braden Taylor. I keep forgetting his name. I apologize. But Braden Taylor, getting a third baseman in him was needed, and we added another one in the form of Hyung-Seung Lee. So Lee, like I said, comes from Korea. He signed last year with the Pirates. He's only 18 years old, so he's still a long way away from making the major leagues. So he did struggle in single A ball this past season. In 15 games, he batted 157 with a 38.3% strikeout rate and only got 1 home run. But when he was moved to the Florida Complex League, he did so much better. As in 144 plate appearances, he batted 309, 396, 569 with a crazy 967 OPS with 6 home runs and 3 stolen bases. So again, he's only 18 years old. He still has a long way to go in terms of his potential. We do not know what he can become. But again, third baseman, 18 years old, a ranked prospect. See what you get from him. I do not mind it at all. And like I said, he was ripping in the Florida Complex League. So let's see what he does here in Miami in our farm system, and hopefully he could develop into a solid third baseman for us, and hopefully for the major leagues. I really want to see what he develops into. And then finally we got outfielder Brian Sanchez, who's currently in high A ball, and he's not even ranked. Yeah, believe it or not, Brian Sanchez is not a ranked prospect. He's from Venezuela, so it's nice to add in some Latin Americans to our Miami ball club. Of course, shout out to the Latin Americans in one of the Latin American capitals of the United States, which is the city of Miami. So kind of nice, we get some Venezuelans in here. Brian Sanchez has been a part of 3 other major league organizations in the prior 4 years. He's been a part of the Milwaukee Brewers franchise, the New York Yankees franchise, and of course the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise. He's 22 years old, and he debuted this season in 327 plate appearances in high A. He batted 254, 340, 431, tacked on 9 home runs, 9 stolen bases, 25.1% strikeout rate, a 10.4% walk rate. Obviously, he's not a crazy power hitter. Just by the stats, he's more of an average hitter, but does have some pop. And his first taste of minor league baseball action was pretty solid. Nothing to write home about. But for a 22-year-old who's just coming into the minor leagues for the first time, solid numbers in a large sample size. Again, 327 plate appearances. So Brian Sanchez is more of an unknown at this moment, but interesting to see what he could become. So, like I said, this trade for Lake Bachar that the Pirates pulled off, very interesting. The Pirates, one of the teams that were in heavy need of reliever help this offseason, or excuse me, this trade deadline. They were all in on improving their bullpen, and you can kind of sense that they were a little bit desperate to do so because I don't think Lake Bachar's worth 3 prospects of any kind. So the fact that the Marlins were able to get 3 prospects in exchange for Lake Bachar is definitely a steal in my opinion. And like I said, even though we're helping out a team that we're fighting against in the NL wildcard race, doesn't mean that Lake Bachar will have a tremendous time in Pittsburgh either. Like I said, he's been struggling as of late. He did have a solid outing his last time up, but just overall just has not been as good as he was early on in the season. Still, electric, great stuff. I wish him well in Pittsburgh. And he could definitely make a return to Miami as the Pirates play us later on this month. So that'll be kind of funny, kind of interesting. And we'll see what that's made. So, so those are the 4 deals that the Marlins made. We didn't get as much Major League help as I would have liked. I would have liked if we would have gotten a starting pitcher because obviously that was one of the things that the Marlins were looking for was finding a replacement for Tyler Phillips in the rotation. Couldn't do it, but I honestly believe that is the one complaint, the only complaint that you could really have, with the Miami Marlins trade deadline. I'm going to give the Marlins a B+ for this trade deadline. I do think that they ended up doing well. They dealt from a position of strength. They gave away Liam Hicks. They got 3 top 30 prospects in Tampa Bay. They added 8 prospects in general. 7 of them are ranked. A lot of them are interesting, and we ended up filling needs across our farm system. We covered the third base hole with Young Lee and Brendan Taylor, and we also or Braden Taylor, excuse me. I keep forgetting his name. Braden Taylor. I got to get used to his name. But we ended up solidifying the third base corner with Braden Taylor and Young Lee. We added more pitching. Like I said, you can never have too much pitching in your farm system. And we ended up getting a lot of intriguing guys. And, of course, like I said, we got Victor Vodnik, who could help us down the stretch run for this playoff push. So the Marlins get a B+ for this trade deadline, in my opinion. I think it was a solid deadline by Peter Bedniks and the front office. And I do believe that a lot of these prospects that we got will see some time in the major league starting next season. Shout out Jonathan Long. I'm looking at you. As well as Jace Beck. But we'll see what goes from here. But, yeah, these prospects, very interesting. Braden Taylor, Jacob Keasting, Adrian Santana, Jonathan Long, Jace Beck. I mean, just great stuff. Like, I love what we got, and I'm very excited to see how these prospects develop and if they will amount to anything. Hopefully they do because we could really use the help. So that's going to be it. Those are my final thoughts on the trade deadline for the Miami Marlins. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And be on the lookout because me and Colin will be back later this week with another episode. We're going to be talking about the Florida Panthers, our very first Florida Panthers-centric episode. Very excited for that. But until next time, guys, see you later. And hopefully you've been enjoying the Sunshine Sports Podcast. This has been Justin Perez, and enjoy the rest of your day.